Rob, did you see the Rams are trying to limit ticket sales to only the Los Angeles area to try to prevent the takeover?
I was mostly surprised by the reaction from media, some national, a lot national, to what Howie said about Jalen Hurts because
Mac and Mac guys, with you here on Bird 365. We got a tremendous addition to the show. It is every time he joins us, coming from his palatial estates down there in Florida. I hear it's chilly, like 65 degrees. That's why he's got a sweater on. Our buddy Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press here with us on Bird 365. You were at the Sombrero yesterday in Tampa, Mr. Maaddi?
yeah, it was more like the frozen tundra yesterday.
Yeah, what was it, like 50 in Tampa? You're
Yeah, man.
the thin blood, Rob. You got the thin.
Oh, I busted out a winter coat for the first time, first time to a football game this year. So it was interesting. What a game, man! What a weekend of NFL action!
Yeah.
Incredible,
How
incredible
about
stuff.
that? Well, let me start it there because you were in Tampa, Rob. It's 27-3. What are you thinking at that point?
I'm thinking 28-3. I'm thinking Atlanta, New England, and then I'm going. Well, this defense. I thought Tampa's defense wasn't going to be able to continue to shut down the Rams and keep it at 27-3, and somehow the Rams just kept turning the ball over, which was mind-blowing to me. There were some questionable decisions at some point. I think at one point in that game, after Brady had thrown an interception and they get the ball and you're like, all right, start running the ball, line up under center, run under, and you're up 2 touchdowns. And immediately it was a shotgun snap and it was fumbled over. So it was, I was, the building, the stadium had emptied out a little bit, guys, which isn't much of a shock when it's 27-3, depending on where you are in the fan base. There was some fans had left and hit that, but by the time they got back and tied it up in that final minute on Leonard Fournette's, it was electric in there. It was crazy, and it was just so deflating for all the fan base. You see Cooper Kupp gets by the defense on that all-out blitz that some of the guys didn't even know about on the defense.
Oh.
And, another questionable call. Like, what are you doing? All-out blitz.
In that type of situation, Rob, and I got a ton of respect for Todd Bowles.
Yeah.
I even saw Tony Dungy tweet about it. It's like,
Yeah.
there's no timeouts. All you got to do is keep them in the middle of the field. The game's going to overtime. You have a chance. That is amazing to me. Some of the coaching decisions, but that one sticks out to me. And as you mentioned, not only was the decision bad, but ultimately it wasn't communicated, or at least that's the way it came across to us.
Yeah, and that was Bruce Arians, what he said after the game. He asked about that specifically. He said, yeah, you can second guess the call if you want. I'm not going to second guess the call, but we need to make sure it's communicated. Everybody's on the same page. And I don't know how that happens. I don't know that you're in a situation like that. Biggest play of the night, and not everyone on the defense is aware of what the play call is. And when you have an all-out blitz and not everybody knows what's going to happen, this is how Cooper Kupp gets behind the defense. Like, I'm watching that play unfold. I don't know if you could see it on the screen, but Cooper Kupp's like 20 yards behind the secondary. And you see the ball, like when you're looking at the whole field and you see that in the air and you see the ball, you're like, there's no way the defender's going to close the gap. And he doesn't. Of course he doesn't close the gap. And that was it, which was, to me, was a kind of an anticlimactic ending because they had come back. So, back down 24, you tie it. You're like, all right, let's see how it goes to overtime. And then we know a lot of complaining about the overtime rules after the Buffalo-Kansas City game. I wonder what would have happened had Tampa and the Rams got to overtime.
Let me continue the coaching second guessing. We're pretty good at this today, and it was certifiable. It was absolutely on point in what happened. And we've been second guessing the coaches who lost. Let me second guess a coach who won yesterday. Sean, offensive genius McVay, who's got a lead He's got a really talented back in Cam Akers. I get it. And they've been waiting for him to come back. And he comes back the last game of the season, plays effectively last week. He's not doing much yesterday. He coughed one up early. They just keep feeding him and feeding him and feeding him. And he's going for 2 yards a clip. There's a reason I'm going there, because I bet the under in number of yards yesterday for Cam Akers. And I couldn't believe they just kept giving him the ball. Where is Sony Michel? They got a good running back on the bench. They just kept giving it to Akers. And sure enough, he coughs it up again in the fourth quarter that gives Brady a chance to tie the game. Sean McVay, offensive genius. What the hell was he thinking yesterday?
Oh, I agree with you wholeheartly. I'm thinking, where is Sony Michel, who helped them get to this position down the stretch when Cam Akers was out? Sean McVay, who I call the most overrated coach in the NFL, still not as good as Doug Peterson. I'll take Dougie P over Sean McVay 10 times out of 10. We were asking ourselves that question too. I was like, is Sony Michel injured? Did something happen? Did he get nicked up? I don't understand what's happening, why he keeps – and then Akers fumbles the ball, the final of the 4 turnovers. So I thought that was very questionable there, and it's going to be I'm excited to see the Jimmy G takeover against the LA Rams, because they haven't beat Jimmy G, and how great would that be to see a mediocre quarterback in the Super Bowl? He'd give every Eagles fan and every other fan of any team that has a mediocre quarterback some hope. Look, you can have a mediocre guy and still get to the dance.
Yeah. Rob, did you see the Rams are trying to limit ticket sales to only the Los Angeles area to try to prevent the takeover? They think nobody in the Bay Area knows anybody in Los Angeles. They can't dodge that brilliant system. I think you're right. It's going to be a takeover for the 49ers. But it's interesting to me. I want to continue with this coaching theme. You're right about Sean McVay. The worst thing you can do in a big situation, a big spot, is change. You use what brings you to the dance, but he wins the game. Whereas, probably the top 2 coaches in the coach of the year voting are going to be Mike Vrabel and Matt LaFleur. And you got to ask yourself, what the heck were those guys doing? I mean, how do you lose a game where you sack the quarterback 9 times? And from Green Bay's perspective, the special teams, a blocked field goal, a blocked punt, and then on the final game-winning field goal, which isn't going to impact things, but it shows you the lack of discipline, 10 people on the field.
Yeah, when we talked about the coach of the year throughout the season and Matt LaFleur's name is mentioned as a front runner, I question why. Why is Matt LaFleur a front runner for coach of the year? They won 13 games last year. They got Aaron Rodgers. They come back and they win 13 games this year. It wasn't a tremendous coaching job. I would have put certainly Mike Vrabel ahead of him for the injuries that they had to overcome to get to the number 1 seed. I would put Nick Sirianni for the homer reasons over him, and not just for that. I mean, it was a coaching job to get a 4-11-1 team to the postseason. So I thought a lot of other guys should be ahead of LaFleur, but I'll probably be wrong, John, and I think they might end up 1-2. The special teams was an issue for the Packers throughout the season, and when that's an issue, like, how do you overlook that? I wonder, how do you not find a way to make sure that this isn't going to hamper you or hinder you or cost you a playoff game? And Matt LaFleur did not find that. He didn't figure out a way. There's different things that you can do. Sometimes when special teams are a disaster in the regular season, later in the year, whatever it is, we've seen it with other coaches. You use some of your starters. You use somebody, and it could be dangerous. You don't want to lose a starting safety or starting cornerback or whatever it may be, but you have to have your best players then on special teams, because you got to make sure it's not going to cost you at crunch time. And I don't know if it's arrogance. Hey, we're that good. We're the number 1 seed. We have Aaron Rodgers. We'll find a way. We're home. We're in Lambeau, whatever it may be. But I thought that was absolutely all on the coach. And yeah, the end of the game, not to have 11 men on the field. Somebody's got to figure that out, whether it's the special teams coordinator, whether it's the coach, whether it's a player back there. That one extra guy may not block the field goal, but at least it gives you a better chance. And I wasn't surprised with Tennessee, though, when you flip over and look at that other game. I wasn't surprised by Tennessee losing because I've just never been sold on the Titans and Ryan Tannehill as a legitimate Super Bowl contending team. And they end up with the number 1 seed. They got some huge wins. They beat some great teams. They beat the Chiefs. They beat the Colts twice. And they got some great – there was a 5-game stretch there, 6-game stretch where they were extremely impressive. But I kept thinking to myself, like, ultimately, you got Ryan Tannehill – and to me, he's in the same category, maybe slightly ahead of Jimmy Garoppolo, where I don't think he'll win you a game. He may lose you a game. You can win with him, but you're not going to win because of him. And he cost them that game. He turned the ball over a couple times, and even though they had 9 sacks, it shows you a little bit, obviously, about Joe Burrow and how well he can play, how great he is, his future. And when you look at the young quarterbacks now in the NFL, and you look at Mahomes, you look at Josh Allen, you look at Justin Herbert, you look at Joe Burrow, and you go, yeah, we're at the end of Brady, we're at the end of Rodgers, but the league is positioned for the next decade to have immense superstar talent, and that's certainly a great thing for the NFL.
All right, Rob, my favorite time of the show, hypothetical question time. If one of the 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks who were eliminated over the weekend, I'm talking about Mr. Rodgers in his neighborhood and Mr. Brady down in your neighborhood, is not coming back to the national.
It was understandable because I think he wants to play. I believe this is a guy who's still ultra competitive, who's having fun when he plays. You could see it out there at practice. He's at the top of his game, leading the league in almost every statistical category. But the decision, guys, is going to come down to family, and I think Giselle has a lot to do with this, and the pressure's probably mounting on Tom to stay home with the family and stay home with the kids, and I think it's a family type pressure that may, if one of these 2 decides to call it quits, and if he does not come back for another year, he's going to cite family reasons. He's dropped hints along the way. The last time he spoke openly about it was a month ago, December 9, and he said there's a lot of time that you're not spending with your kids and your family. So when the first thing Giselle said to Tom after he won the Super Bowl last year on the field was, what else do you have to prove? I think it tells you where her mind is. She wants him out of football, retired at home and playing the daddy role 24/7. And I think that she may win. I hope we get to see one more year because he's still playing at the top of his game. This is not like Peyton Manning when he won with Denver and he just couldn't throw more than a 12-yard pass.
Yeah.
There's a guy who could still play. But Aaron Rodgers may not come back to the Packers, but I feel like he's going to want to play, especially if he's going to end up winning another MVP award, and it's possible and very likely that he does, and he's going to be a 2-time defending, reigning MVP. To walk away for him at this point, it would be Aaron Rodgers-ish because he's a different kind of guy. He's an outside-the-box thinker, and there's a possibility, but I would expect him to want to play. Now, he did say the other night he doesn't want to be part of a rebuild. He wants to play with a team that has a chance, and the Packers got a ton of issues with the salary cap, somewhere over $44 million over the salary cap. Can they retain some of their guys and not be a contending team? So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And some of the, can you imagine if Brady does decide to step down and Rodgers decides to come to Tampa and take his spot and step in with Mike Evans and some of the guys they have?
Yeah, it was interesting. I don't know if you saw, he was open-ended with you guys, Rob, but he went to Twitter afterwards, and it certainly sounded like he was coming back on Twitter. He even put #KeepGoing. Now we look back on an incredible season, learn our lessons, and get up because even greater things are coming. That's what Tom Brady.
The TB12.
TB12. Yeah.
Yeah. It was funny because guys were reading that in in the press box going, it's a TB12 tweet.
Yeah,
They
it
have
could be
a
somebody
tweet,
else.
a tweet in the can already,
Yeah.
organizational
Yeah.
type. Hey, if we win, we put this. If we lose, we put
Yeah.
this. So it was interesting though. A couple of people going, "Hey, what do you think? What's keep going mean?" It could be a life philosophy. So, yeah, I'm not convinced yet. I think this is going to be a decision that's going to be weeks in the making. I think it's going to take convincing of. Had he already had her blessing, he would have been able to say right after the game, "Yeah, I'm coming back for one more. I'm under contract for 2022. I want to play out my contract. I want to play at age 45 one more year, and I'm going to do it." But I think the fact that he didn't say that means he doesn't have her blessing, her permission, whatever term you want to use, and it's going to take some convincing over the next couple of weeks.
All right, need your take on this, Rob. And again, this is kind of hypothetical because advancing the Kansas City Chiefs into the Super Bowl past Joe Burrow, who does nothing but win playoff games. 2 years ago, when Andy Reid made it to the Super Bowl, I think the majority of Philadelphia got behind him. There were a couple of haters out there, but most people were rooting very much for Andy to get that Super Bowl win, even though it wasn't on an Eagles sideline. They wanted it for the guy, and sure enough, he went out and got it. Last year, when he goes back again, the love for Andy probably subsided a little bit because he'd gotten what he needed, the Super Bowl. If he gets thrown around, that'd be great, but he didn't get it done. If he goes again this year, 3 years in a row, he went to 4 straight NFC championship games with the Eagles, only one Super Bowl. What do you think the feeling in Philadelphia is going to be for Andy Reid if he takes a Chiefs team to the bowl 3 years running?
Oh, I think you'll have a certain majority of people who will root for Andy, appreciate what he did in Philly, appreciate the man that he is, and root for him. But then I think there will be a minority of fans who will be somewhat not frustrated, but upset that he didn't get the job done here, tired of seeing him there. And as you called them, Jody, the haters who are always going to want to see other people wallow in suffering and losing and misery because
a lot of those people, Rob.
Because they're accustomed to that too.
Yeah.
This is one of those Twitter poll questions that you can put out and radio shows put out all the time. I'd be interested. Sometimes you put those out and like you're not really interested in the answer. This is one where I wonder, would it be 60-40? Would it be 70-30? Would it be 55-45 rooting for, rooting against? That's hey, you might as well do that and get it sponsored by one of those wonderful sponsors you got over there.
Exactly.
I from a Philadelphia perspective, I don't know how you can't have respect for Andy Reid if you're an Eagles fan. I mean, their DNA as an organization to this day can be traced back to Andy Reid. Everything they believe comes from Andy Reid. And they built a pretty successful organization. I know, Rob, you go back to that. You were here way back in 1999, I assume. First year, that staff is amazing. And the assistant to the head coach on Andy Reid's first staff was Sean McDermott. And there they were last night battling each in arguably the greatest game in NFL history. You could put that in the conversation as one of the, certainly if it happened in the Super Bowl, it would be probably regarded as that. So to see those guys going back and forth, but I got to bring it up, 13 seconds left. Why is Sean McDermott not saying, let's force this team to return this kick? Are you that scared of that return game? Because if you take a little bit of time off that clock, game's over.
That, I was thinking of that as valid criticism, because if you squib kick that, if you don't kick it out of the end zone, if they have to return it from the 1, from the 5, from the 12, from the 18, I don't care where it ends up, where it lands, it's going to take 4, 5, 6 seconds. And now Kansas City needs 1 play, not 2 plays. They won't have time to run 2 plays. I know they had their allotment of timeouts, but it certainly is a very questionable decision. I didn't hear what Sean McDermott said after the game or if he was asked about that, but that's one that he needs to answer, and it ends up costing him. But it's crazy, guys, to think this. In the first game, the Bucs rallied back down 24, and they tie it up with 42 seconds left, and it gave the Rams too much time on the clock. And then
13 seconds, too much time.
And then the Bills say, you know what, we'll one-up you. We'll rally. We'll take the lead, and we'll give them too much time, and it's only 13 seconds. Who would have thought 13 seconds is too much time? And Patrick Mahomes is, you know, dynamic. Josh Allen was tremendous. It was one of the greatest games ever. I will say 41-33 was pretty it was a pretty incredible football game too. Not just because the Eagles won, but because when you look at it, one punt, back and forth, the total yards and all the other records in that one, that's got to be right there in the conversation as one of the greatest games.
All right, Maaddi, man, we didn't have you on last week. I know you were part of it. I think I remember you're getting a question in for the Eagles closing press conference of the regular season, the head coach and the general manager. Anything there surprise you? Anything there make you question what the heck the Eagles were doing? Anything there that really excited you? What was the one answer and or road that the media / Eagles went down that got your most attention?
I was mostly surprised by the reaction from media, some national, a lot national, to what Howie said about Jalen Hurts, because what Howie said about Jalen was what he should have said about Jalen. There was no other answer they could have given. They could not have said, we're looking for another quarterback. We're going to explore our options. He's not the guy. They said exactly what they're supposed to say. And none of it, to me, means options. I still think that there's a possibility they go outside and bring in a new quarterback. And there's still the very real possibility they keep Jalen and for one more season, try and evaluate him and trade one of those picks and accumulate another one in 2023 and have that as a potential option. But if you don't think they're going to kick the tires on Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson and whoever else with any pedigree becomes available, then you're not paying close enough attention to what Howie Roseman and this organization values. So having said that, I was surprised, not by anything that came from them, but from people in the national media taking it as gospel, as a guarantee. All right, there you go. Jalen Hurts is going to be the starting quarterback next year. No, Jalen Hurts is the starting quarterback of the Eagles as of the statement, January 19 or whatever it was made. And there was nothing else that could have been said. And I think sometimes media ought to know better. We all should know better. It doesn't mean anything right now, but it was exactly what they should have said. If I want to go outside of that and go one other thing, maybe it was we're still evaluating our staff in regards to the question about Jonathan Gannon. Hey, if he doesn't get a job somewhere else, is he going to be your defensive coordinator? And he didn't automatically say yes. He said, we're still evaluating our staff. And that made me wonder or question, is there something there? If Jonathan Gannon doesn't get a head coaching job, is there a possibility he's not back as a defensive coordinator?
I can answer that one.
I can tell you that one.
I think I can answer that one.
Talk to Jeffrey,
he hadn't had the sit-down meeting with the big boss yet. The owner had not chimed in on the coaching staff just yet, and we know what happens when the owner does that.
Nick is very savvy, and he knew not to say anything before he talked to Jeffrey. But
he wasn't going to pull a Doug Peterson and say Mike Gross coming back.
Exactly. So I want to bring those two thoughts together, Rob. And by the way, I'm glad you brought that up, because I told Jody last week, I don't know why everyone assumes these guys are under oath. They're not under oath. They can change their mind. So when they say something about Jalen Hurts, recency bias, we just went through this great weekend of football. How do you not look at Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and say, we got to get better at the quarterback position? And then with JG, do you think he's going to be the head coach of the Houston Texans? Is there fire growing from that smoke?
I don't think Gannon's going to end up getting a head coaching job. I think it's nice to see him getting these opportunities, but I don't think he's going to get a head coaching job. I would be surprised. I'll tell you that. I'll be slightly surprised if he does get a head coaching job this year. And I believe he's still got to do a little bit more and maybe not pay his dues, but I think he's at least another hiring cycle away if he's going to end up getting that opportunity. Now, as far, what was the first part of the question?
The quarterback, just the recency bias of watching Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow, for that matter.
Anybody will look at that, right? Anybody will look at it and say, yeah, you should want a Mahomes and Allen, a Joe Burrow, but the other JG, you said JG and Jonathan Gannon. What about Jimmy G? JG, Jimmy Garoppolo. He gives you hope when you have Jalen Hurts. He gives you hope. He didn't do a single thing to win that game. They won on special teams. They won on defense. They won with their running game. But now that gives teams who have that mid-tier, mediocre 15 to 30 quarterback, not top 10, not top 12 quarterback, an opportunity to say, hey, we can find it. Look at the 49ers. They made it to the NFC title game, and they did it riding a strong running game, a strong defense, and a quarterback who didn't lose them the game. And if we can just find a game manager and who fits that description and build around these other guys, maybe he's dynamic. Like Jalen Hurts is capable of making more plays, I think, than Jimmy Garoppolo because of his legs. I think he's got the potential to be more dynamic. So from that perspective, had Aaron Rodgers won and got in, then you go, all right, look at that. The final four quarterbacks, all elite, all guys in the top five. But there's that glimmer of hope for the teams out there who don't have one of those guys. And you better believe some are going to hold on to that, not because they want to, but because they don't have the opportunity to have one of the other guys.
When John brought it up, everyone wants a superstar quarterback. But then there's Jimmy G. And if he wins the whole thing, it kind of changes your perspective. Last one for me, Rob. And I know you could have answered this question better 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when the NFL and how it was covered was different. You're doing your stuff from Tampa these days anyway. But even if you were still living in South Philly, you'd be doing it via remote on Zoom. So things changed, but they stay the same. Jason Kelce. We all want to know. We're all dying to know. We got to know. Is Jason Kelce coming back for another year? If you were still in the locker room, being able to get feelings from other players, maybe Jason himself on the record, off the record, we know that much better. So I'm asking you to make a read from afar. Think Jason Kelce's coming back to the Birds next year?
I do. I do. If I had to put a percentage on it, I think it'd be closer to 60 that he does than he doesn't. I just feel like, hey, he was a first team All-Pro. He's playing at a high level, and they lose that game to the Buccaneers, and he commits 2 uncharacteristic penalties in there. Yeah, I know Jason Kelce's a competitor, tough guy. He doesn't want to go out that way, losing a game, committing 2 holding penalties, All-Pro season. There's no decline in his game. He's still at the top of his game, and he's still building some Hall of Fame credentials. And I think that he could be, they're valid right now. He's got a strong case for the Hall of Fame. But man, if he comes back and is a Pro Bowler one more year and an All-Pro one more time, he could really solidify that case for the Hall of Fame. He's having fun. He's a team leader. Guys love him. The coaches, Nick Sirianni, everybody wants him back. What did he say last week? He's sending him a couple kegs or something like that.
Kegs. So couple kegs.
He's gonna feel the pressure from some of his teammates and some of the coaches and everybody really to come back. And I think when it's all said and done, he takes some time off like he does every year. And he's still got that ability to play, and I think they got a coach in Nick who, he gives you the rest days as a veteran. You don't have to go out there on a Wednesday, sometimes on a Thursday. Take your rest days and just show up and be ready for the game. And he's still got that love for the game, so I could see him coming back for at least one more year.
All right, Rob, before I let you go, I want to let everybody know about Faith on the Field, your syndicated radio show. Everybody can check that out, faithonthefieldshow.com, the AP Pro Football Podcast. I assume you're dragging all the equipment to Los Angeles. So I'm going to ask you, who you going to be watching in Los Angeles? Because we're not going to get you again before the championship game. So I want to pin you down. Who are you going to be watching at SoFi Field?
I'm going to take the Chiefs with the home field advantage to win that game against the Bengals. They're so dynamic on offense, and I know Joe Burrow is, but when you see Burrow get sacked 9 times by the Tennessee Titans, I think he's not going to be able to. The offensive line, their O-line needs help. Their O-line needs Andre Dillard and Jack Driscoll, and all the Eagles' backups would be starters on that Bengals offensive line. Hey, Howie. There's a trade partner for you right there with the Cincinnati Bengals. How about Andre Dillard for Jamar Chase? I'm kidding.
Oh, yeah.
Before anybody,
that's gonna happen. Nice try, bud.
Before anybody thinks I woke up drunk or anything, that would never happen. But hey, there's a trade partner there, so I'm going to take the Chiefs, and I'm going to roll with my guy now, my guy Jimmy G.
Yeah,
he's never lost to that overrated Sean McVay. He's 6-0 against them. They beat him. I was in the press box at the Buccaneers game week 18 because they had just won. They needed the 49, and we're all gathered around watching the Niners-Rams in LA at SoFi week 18 of the season because it had seeding ramifications. And as I was watching that, I would have never thought this is the preview of the NFC Championship. And here it is, the preview of the NFC Championship. No Brady, no Rodgers, no Dak. And it's the Niners. Go out there, get that W, and no, it won't be a Niners-Bengals.
They came back from 17 too. Came back from 17 down. Yeah.
I'd like to see that just so we can give all the teams with mediocre quarterbacks more hope out there that Jimmy got the Niners to the Super Bowl.
All right, you set me up for the perfect last question, hypothetical. Chiefs, Niners. Chiefs find a way to win. Mahomes is Mahomes. Jimmy G plays well enough. It's not because of Jimmy G that they lose the game. Mahomes throws for 375 and 4 touchdowns. You're not going to hang that on Jimmy G. But he got him to the Super Bowl, doesn't win. Is he their starting quarterback next year in San Francisco?
Gotta be. He's got to be. Hey, if Aaron Rodgers could sit on the bench and wait for Brett Favre, I think Trey Lance can sit and wait for, well, all right, Jimmy G's not Brett Favre, but he takes him to a Super Bowl. I think you take it to the Super Bowl, you can't lose your job, man. You come back and you let him play next year, and the first time he gets dinged up, I just don't feel like Trey Lance was ready this year, and I don't know how ready he's going to be next year. So there's always that potential where you groom him for another year. They invested a lot in him. He's their quarterback of the future. That doesn't mean he's got to be their quarterback of the right now.
Marty, man, know you got your finger on the pulse of the Bucs this week to see if that Brady guy makes a decision. Sounds like you're with us. He's probably coming back, and you're going to get the cover him again next year and cover the Eagles from afar. You know we're going to tap into you plenty during the offseason and probably before the Super Bowl again as well. Rob, appreciate it. Thanks for coming on today. Enjoy. Get your sweater out because it's only going to get colder down there in Tampa.
I can't wait, guys. I'll probably see you then from Radio Row. If you need me, I'll be out there. All right?
Thanks, Rob.
Rob Maaddi, Associated Press, here with us on Birds 365. All right, Mullen and McDonald coming back. You know, we got to put on a bow on the show on Birds 365.